Deciding where to grow or move your business can be full of unexpected delays. Or you could just go to Ohio. With billions invested in shovel-ready sites, a dedicated team whose only job is to tackle red tape, and 0% corporate income tax, Ohio makes it easy for your business to scale faster. In fact, Ohio ranked number 2 in the U.S. for lowest cost of doing business multiple years in a row. Your move. Learn more at jobsohio.com.
Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.
Man, what is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Bob Chesney getting hired over a week ago. I know you guys have seen all the coverage. We had to bring in the big guns. My main man, Mr. Ben Bolch, coming through to the Bruin Bible. We are so honored, Jamal and I, to have him on. He is the guy from the LA Times. I am like hooked on these Bruins Unlocked, Ben. You got to keep these coming out each and every week. How are you doing, man, with all the news going on in the UCLA world?
Yeah, it's funny. I keep telling people that I've only had 2 days off since training camp started, and it's honestly not an exaggeration. It's been, wall-to-wall work, but I'm so grateful for it. Grateful to be at the LA Times, and that they fund the travel. I've been the only traveling basketball beat writer for 10 years. Very grateful for all the support I've had and all the readership, and people like both of you following along. Just very happy and grateful for every opportunity. So. I always say I don't root for teams. I root for good storylines, and we've had no shortage of those here since training camp started, right? I mean, it was a brand new staff with Coach Foster. Then we had the early upheaval in the season, coaching change, crazy 3-game run with the interim staff, some upheaval, in the athletic department that I've written about, and kind of a crazy start to the basketball season as well. And then, the big news you alluded to, Coach Bob Chesney coming on board, who I was in favor of from day one. In fact, I wrote, when DeShaun Foster got fired, I wrote basically the non-negotiable traits. And if you go read the first 3 or 4 graphs of that, it was like I was leading the coaching search. They hit every point head on. And nailed it. So I think they did a great job. I think they got the right guy, and it's impossible to know how it's going to turn out, right? But I don't think there could be any more optimism than there is right now around UCLA football.
And Ben, what was that press conference like with Chesney? Because we were watching through the screen. We obviously have Wayne Cook come on each and every week when he can, and just the vibes that we've heard, that we saw through the TV screen, and everything that we've read. It was just immaculate vibes all around for the UCLA fan base. Julio Frank led the conversation to start it off. You had Martin Jarman give a nice impassioned speech to the fan base, and Chesney knocked it out of the park. I mean, you can win press conferences. Chesney definitely won in the first one that he gave for UCLA. What was it like being there in person, and what you were able to kind of figure out about the future of UCLA football being there?
Yeah, just really impressive. And I think he hit all the right notes about, the buzzword that was thrown around was alignment. And, I think it is kind of a, people could kind of roll their eyes a little bit and say it's university speak or whatever. But I do feel that there's some authenticity to it in that this university is going to support Coach Chesney in a way that maybe it hasn't before. Bob Myers, who's one of the regents and was on the coaching search, alluded to supporting him with resources that are going to be in the top third, maybe top quartile in the Big Ten. And that's big news, right? Because that always hasn't been the case. So that's going to be a game changer. And he was just super impressive in everything he said, hit the right notes, had the right tone. And, I think everybody around this program couldn't be more excited for this start. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work to do. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover. Anticipate him bringing a good chunk of his James Madison staff, probably a good chunk of the roster as well. But we'll start to get some answers here soon. The transfer portal opens January 2nd. They play Oregon on Saturday. So everybody tune in to see what that coaching staff looks like and start scouting some of these players, right?
No doubt, Ben. And, speaking of that roster turnover, and one name I think we have our eye on in terms of does he come back, does he go elsewhere, is Nico Iamaleava. And, we had such a great conversation with you. Hard to believe it was 3.5 months ago before the season started. We all shared in our expectation of his superstardom. And I think the superstardom is there. That supporting cast just wasn't there. But any sense that you have around the program of where Nico is leaning and where Bob Chesney is leaning in terms of who the signal caller that he wants for 2026?
Well, from what I've heard and been told, and this doesn't come from, Coach Chesney, and more so people around the program who've been here before his arrival, I think there's a hope and expectation that Nico will come back. I don't think that that's set in stone. Things can always change, but I think that, there's good momentum toward that. And I think that, he obviously, as you said, showed a lot of talent, needs a lot more support. And I think he'll have that next year. He'll have great coaching. So I think there's a lot of reasons to stay. Obviously, he has to think about a reputational hit he would take by leaving again, right? So I think that's another big factor. And I think obviously he'll have the NIL figures he wants in place. So I think there's a lot of reasons for him to stay. His family's in Long Beach. I know that, it was funny. I actually went around the Rose Bowl before that last game talking to tailgaters and ran into his father just randomly and put him in my story. And he talked about how much he loved the Rose Bowl and how much they love being home and gave me some funny anecdotes. So I think there's a really good chance that Nico is the quarterback in 2026.
What was your experience like with Tim Skipper? Because you wrote a really good piece on him at the end of the year. And, it's going to be a forgettable UCLA football season for a lot of fans. But I think for Jamal and I, who cover the team closely like you, Ben, that 3-game win streak that Tim kind of got this program back on track, those were some of the most fun times we've had covering UCLA just because of the unexpected nature of how the team kind of flipped. There was a shot they could go bull hunting at the end of the year. The expectations were nothing, and they almost went sky high there. Unfortunately, it kind of led to, 4 to 5 straight losses at the end of the year. But what type of guy was Skipper, and how excited are you that he got a job at Cal Poly?
Oh, 100% on board with Coach Skipper. Thrilled that he, has an opportunity now to lead his own program. I think he'll do a great job there, but just couldn't have been more impressed with the way he kind of galvanized this team. And they were in a really bad place. I think the culture was not in a good place, and he fixed that really quickly, as we saw. Pulling that, I'd have to go back and look at every game, but that was one of the top, I would say easily top 5 upsets of the season, given kind of where those teams were at that time. Right. And I'll always remember that first drive when UCLA had the ball on the Jerry. It was kind of spine tingling, right? And it never let up. And you're like, wow, is this a daydream? And they got the onside kick. They scored on their first 5 drives. It was like one of those days you'll never forget. So really special time. And then obviously, as you said, they went on the road and beat Michigan State. And that was, equally impressive because they dominated that game. Then they won a grinder against Maryland. Obviously the season went downhill from there, but they played literally the top 2 teams in the country. So those games, they really pulled together. And Tim Skipper and let's give some credit to the rest of the staff too, as well. Right. Because that whole staff did a great job. So, hopefully all those guys can find good landing spots because they did a great job.
No, great job indeed, Ben. And, if there's a couple of storylines going into this offseason, you alluded to it. There's the who, and then there's also the where. And would love to kind of get your thoughts. Seemed like there was a lot of momentum with this SoFi move potentially, a couple of weeks ago. Now it feels like maybe it's the Rose Bowl again. Just what are you hearing? And if you had to sort of lay an expectation of where this team is going to play in 26, where do you believe it'll be?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question, right? And it's probably could be the hundreds of millions of dollars. LA could, in theory, be on the hook for that amount if they end up leaving. But, it's impossible to know. It's interesting, though. I've started talking to some legal scholars around the country from some of the top law schools, and I'm planning on a story here in the next week or so that I think people will enjoy getting their opinions about where this is headed. And, just as a little teaser, they're kind of mixed on the possible outcomes here. And I think it's probably smart to hedge your bets on anything, right? Because there's so many variables, so many different ways this could go. And I'm not going to, say I have a crystal ball, but I think that if UCLA does leave, they're going to have to make a much bigger payout than's been, Bruin Report said, they anticipated 60. I think it was either 40 to 80 or 60 to 80. I can't remember. I think if they end up leaving it, you can throw many multiples onto that. That's my best guess. I don't think this is going to be something where they can write a small check and walk away. If they do walk away, they're gonna shell out some serious bucks here. But I'm a traditionalist. You probably know from reading what I've written. I hope they stay at the Rose Bowl. I think it is UCLA football. I think it's squarely identified what UCLA football is. I understand the flip side of, hey, we want to go somewhere modern, closer to campus. I mean, I think those are, somewhat reasonable arguments as well. I just can't imagine UCLA football without the Rose Bowl. I think it's one of their greatest assets. So we'll see. The next step is next month. They're scheduled to decide whether this goes to arbitration or plays out in open court. But I think, this thing's got at least several more months ahead of it. So we got, as somebody told me, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, you wrote a fantastic piece kind of on the behind the scenes of Bob Chesney ultimately being the guy with the search committee, how this started and to where they wound up. Do you mind just breaking that down and what the search committee really did throughout the process, and maybe some of the other names you heard that were floated out that interviewed for the job that Chesney ultimately won?
Yeah, well, the people I talked to who helped me construct that story were very, very guarded with the names, as they should be, right? Because they don't embarrass anybody who was part of the process or give them, grief from their current jobs, positions. So, I know and can guess some names, but I'm not comfortable giving those out. But, I think it got down to, they told me, the final 8 was 7 sitting head coaches and 1 coordinator. So, they had a very impressive list. As I wrote when they started that process, that, having Bob Myers, the former Warriors Golden State manager, Adam Peters, general manager of the Washington Commanders, those are 2 huge figures in pro sports and in the sporting world. And I think that really set the tone for what became a very impressive search. I think they did a great job of identifying Bob Chesney very early. And as I wrote, when they were narrowing it down, everybody kept coming back to the same name, Bob Chesney. He was on everybody's list. Everybody was impressed. They all kind of coalesced very early and stuck with it. And, it was kind of the anti-Lane Kiffin pursuit. I could have written a whole article about that, just kind of pointing out all the differences there, because it was. But I think that speaks volumes to the integrity of Bob Chesney, and I'm glad that UCLA had no qualms about letting him coach through the CFP, which actually is very smart, because every moment he's shown on TV is branding for UCLA, right? I mean, how many times are they going to say the next UCLA coach and talk about his future? It's going to be a huge storyline as long as he's in the CFP.
Hey, this is Steve Gorman, radio host, sports commentator, former drummer for the Black Crowes. The winter holidays are here, a time for festive celebrations, family gatherings, and ringing in the new year. Whether it's a holiday party, a night out with friends, or just relaxing by the fire with a few drinks, it's a season full of good cheer. But here's something else to add to your holiday plans: a safe and sober ride home. Just like in sports and music, always have a game plan. And the most important part of any plan is sticking to it. If you plan to drink, take that plan a step further. Call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or have a designated driver lined up before the night begins. Drinking and driving is a decision that can change your life and the lives of others forever. A DUI, a crash, an injury. The consequences are real and lasting. So please, for your sake and for everyone else on the road, make the smart choice. Get a sober ride home. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Yeah, no, Ben, speaking of coaches, with storylines, I'm going to flip to the other major sport in the UCLA ecosystem, and on the hardwood. Mick Cronin, you reported earlier, 5-year extension for Cronin. Interesting timing, interesting outcome. Could you maybe speak to, what you thought went into that decision and whether it was justified?
Yeah, I think the timing was unfortunate for all parties. I've learned some new things since then that I can't really divulge now, but it kind of makes some more sense as to why it happened when it happened. And I'll just leave that there. But I think there was a good reason for the extension. Now, I know some fans are saying, we're coming off a second round exit followed after missing the tournament altogether. Season, right? That's not UCLA level acceptable. And I get that, but I think if you look at the list of top coaches in the game, Mick Cronin is still squarely on that list. He's a name that's been pursued by other schools recently, and he's stuck with UCLA. And as he told me, he has no desire to go anywhere else. He wants to win here. He respects what it means to be the head coach at UCLA. He turns left on Sunset, as he says. Still gets to do that. Is very grateful for it, and I think he's going to be driven to get this righted here. Now, having said that, there is a lot of things that need to happen, right? I mean, we've all seen, this team has a lot of kind of issues that it needs to figure out, starting with, defense, rebounding, and then getting Donovan Dent being back to Donovan Dent, right? So those are some things. And obviously, I think the other thing that he really needs to do is get some really high-end local high school players back in the pipeline. They've struggled to recruit local high school kids for several years now. Trent Perry kind of fell into their lap because infield left for SMU. Going back to before that, I mean, Amari Bailey is really the last kind of local kid, high-end kid that they've gotten. So I think they need to kind of get that repaired. I know that there's, at least one kid they're still looking at as a possibility for next season, but I think that's going to be key, and just getting players that fit his system and can play defense, who are athletic, relentless, and can play defense, right? Because that's Mick Cronin basketball.
Yeah, when it comes to the basketball team, we had some very high expectations for this team coming in. Top two leading scorers coming back, Donovan Dent, one of the top players in the transfer portal. You got two McDonald's All-Americans and Xavier Booker transferring in, and Trent Perry. Do you think this team, if they are able to figure it out, what is the ceiling for this team in an NCAA tournament like bracket? Because coming in, Jamal and I were very open about, this could be an Elite Eight team, and maybe if they press their luck a little harder, it could reach the Final Four. We're struggling just to make the tournament now, in our opinion, because we've lost our three most important out-of-conference games to start this off. If we are to right this ship, Ben, what is the ceiling for UCLA moving forward?
Well, you can never, I think, truly put a ceiling on it, because we saw with that Final Four team, if things coalesce and you catch lightning in a bottle, go a long way, right? So, and I, you could make an argument that this team is, maybe as talented as that one. So you just never know. I mean, but I think the two limiting factors, as I mentioned before, are defense and rebounding. And if you're going to make a sustained run in March, you've got to do those at a reasonably high level. You can't try to outscore people every game and win, 4 to 5 straight games doing that. So they need to figure things out there. I am encouraged that, Coach Cronin's willing to try zone. He threw some other guys at the 5 the other night, Bilodeau and, Brandon Williams maybe for a couple minutes. So he's willing to try new things, which I think is encouraging. I'd like to see more of Steven Jamerson. He kind of brings that toughness and rebounding, right? And maybe you play Xavier Booker at the 4 some, and maybe they can even play together. I think I did ask Coach that a week or so ago, and he said he was not really looking at that as an option. But I think everything has to be on the table at this point. But number one, Donovan Dent has got to play much closer to the level he did at New Mexico. We just have not seen that this year. I mean, he looked really good in the preseason, right? And has had a few flashes here and there, but just not confidently shooting the ball. 3-point percentage, last I looked, was 7%. I mean, that's a crazy drop off from 40% to 7, right? And he looks like he doesn't want to shoot the ball. That's to me is the most troubling thing. It's one thing if you're Kobe Bryant, you're 0 for 15 and you're going to take 3 more shots. He's hesitant to do it, right? So he's got to get that confidence back. He did say after the game the other night that coach has been kind of boosting him up, which I think is a really encouraging sign. So maybe, another good game or two, and he kind of gets that trajectory going in the right way again.
Ben, why do you think that is? I mean, do you think he's just feeling the pressure of the NIL contract, or is there something kind of different structurally to his game than what you saw last year? But just it's such an enigma right now. What is the mystery here with Dent?
I think it's a combination of things. You know, he did come in with this huge NIL deal. He did have a couple of injuries happening concurrently. And I just feel like he had Coach Cronin said it after the Washington game. He feels the weight of the world on his shoulders right now. And this is a different situation. He was at New Mexico where they were kind of like the scrappy underdogs and everything they did well was kind of like a bonus. This is like, no, you're coming in here. You're going to be the guy. You're getting paid an outrageous sum to do it. You got to do it. And he struggled and, you know, the injuries. And then, you know, Coach Cronin said he also has struggled to get to the rim against higher level defenders, which I think is true. And we've all seen that. And we've also seen him get to the baseline and kind of be in no man's land and jump up in the air and throw the ball to nobody. Right. And part of that's on his teammates, but they've got to get that figured out because we keep seeing that repeatedly. So just a number of issues that I think need to get resolved.
Ben, you are the absolute man. We are so honored to have you on. We got one more question for you, and it's our sleeper question of the episode. Make sure you use code UCLA LAFB. Get a $100 deposit match up to $100 on sleeper. Use code UCLA LAFB. We got a new offensive coordinator, and we got a new GM of football coming in. Dean Kennedy, he led a top 10 rushing unit and a top 10 total offense unit at James Madison. We talked about alignment a lot in that press conference, right? You want Chesney to have his guy. So I think it's really cool that he got his guy in Kennedy on the offense. And then Derek Ray coming from Florida State. It's been a rough couple of years with the Seminoles, but that 2023 Florida State team was as good as any team that's missed the college football playoff, especially on that 4-team, unit, as they didn't lose a game in the regular season. You're talking about transfers like Braden Fisk for the Rams right now, Keon Coleman, Tatum Bethune for my Niners. What do you know about Derek Ray and Dean Kennedy on the surface? And are these good moves for UCLA moving forward?
Well, I'll just put it like this. I will believe in every move Bob Chesney makes until proven otherwise. I don't have a deep enough dive on either one of those gentlemen to tell you definitively X, Y, Z, but I believe that they were hired for a reason. I mean, we know that Derek has West Coast ties. He was at Oregon State. He was at Fresno State. So, Coach Chesney mentioned that in his introduction, that was important to get in here. And early success, just in visibility, he posted, or somebody posted a picture of him with modern day coach Raul Lara, who I've known for many, many years, going back to his days at Long Beach Poly. Shout out to the Jackrabbits. He's already had them on campus at the Wasserman Center. So that's a great early sign. Dean Kennedy, if Bob Chesney thinks that he's the guy, I think he's the guy. Like I said, I'm going to roll with every decision and judgment that Coach Chesney makes until proven otherwise.
Man, Ben, thank you so much, guys. Make sure you guys are subscribed to UCLA Unlocked with my guy, Ben. Make sure you're reading everything this guy puts out. It is crack for UCLA fans. We can't get enough of it at his LA Times. Ben, thank you so much. Bruin Bible, we are officially out. We will talk to you guys at the end of the week.
Hey, what's up, Bruin family? And thank you, as always, for making the Bruin Bible a part of your daily listen. Got to tell you quickly about our friends over at Sleeper. It's the #1 sports app on the App Store or Google Play. And when you go to download the app today and you go to make your first deposit, make sure to use our promo code UCLA LAFB. All one word, UCLA LAFB. They're going to match your deposit up to $100. You put in $100, you get $100 free to play with. And when you get that money in there, go do the daily fantasy. You're just going to choose 2 to 8 players across any sport and just choose more or less. So if you're looking at UCLA, Nico Iamaleava, are you choosing more or less passing yards? You can go pros with the Rams, with the Chargers, choose more or less for touchdowns, receptions. You go with baseball, NBA, NHL, anything you want is right there on the Sleeper app. Plus, right now, they're giving new users a $20 free entry, no deposit required. So you can get $20 free immediately for signing up and then stack that offer with our UCLA LAFB promo code and get that match bonus. So head to Sleeper, download it, tell them the guys at the LAFB network sent you.
Deciding where to grow or move your business can be full of unexpected delays. Or you could just go to Ohio. With billions invested in shovel-ready sites, a dedicated team whose only job is to tackle red tape, and 0% corporate income tax, Ohio makes it easy for your business to scale faster. In fact, Ohio ranked number 2 in the U.S. for lowest cost of doing business multiple years in a row. Your move. Learn more at jobsohio.com.
Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.